Sup, Sexy Peas? Welcome to Sexy Peas, recipes to give you confidence in the kitchen. All right. So our staple this week is a big baking dish. This is one of my favorites. My sister-in-law Nancy got this for me, and I love it. And it's perfect for what we're doing this week. We're doing just a frozen lasagna that we're going to jazz up a little bit. But here's the thing. You may not have, there are lasagnas that would fit perfectly into this container, but you're not always going to have that option. So I'm going to show you some tricks to make it function in a different size baking dish. So what we have is just a standard frozen lasagna. We're going to make it fit into this container. We're going to read the directions first so we know that we're cooking at 375. We're going to preheat our oven to 375, and we know it's going to cook for 65 minutes. But what we're going to do, normally you would just cook it in this container. We're taking it out and we're going to force it into our own container. So it looks like we know how to cook lasagna, even though we may not. All right, I'm back. So as you can see, it's not exactly a good fit, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to force it to fit. And at the end, we're going to make it look pretty so that it doesn't matter if we make it look shitty at the beginning. I'll throw this away. All right, so now when we tried to put this in here, we could see it was just ever so slightly too long. So what we're going to do is just get a giant honking knife and just chop off the end of this. Make sure you're on a cutting board. Make sure you don't cut your fingers off. You can edit out the amount of time it takes for me to do this and the sweat beads. You could do like a musical montage where you speed it up, like they did in Rocky. All right, so now, you see that? So now what we're gonna do is place that lasagna in our bowl where it fits. And fortunately, the little section that we have left over, we can jam it right down into the side. Works out perfectly. Let me wash my hands real quick. And then, because we're going to be jazzing this up a little later, cut all that out. What we're going to do is just stick this in the oven to cook for about 3/4 of the time. So it's supposed to be in for 65 minutes. So 3/4 of that is 15, 40, it's like 47 minutes and some change maybe, something like that. I don't know, rough number. But I want to cover this up so nothing happens to the cheese and stuff as it's cooking. I don't want it to overcook or char or anything like that. So I'm just going to stick a loose piece of aluminum foil over the top of it. And shove it in the oven. 558, 6, okay. All right, that's it for that one, for that piece. All right, this week's drink is called a Shandy. It's basically half lemonade, half beer. It's a good summertime drink. Put a slice of lemon on the rim of the glass. First thing we want to do is make sure our lemon's clean, because if it's not, everybody's going to get botulism or salmonella. We've cut lemons this way before. We just want to cut a wedge that we can put on the edge of the glass. So we'll cut through it once, cut through it twice, cut it in half. And then again, like I've shown you before, just cut a little piece out of the top of it so it'll fit easily on the glass. There we go. Now, what we're going to do is fill it half and half, so half beer and half lemonade. Ow. There we go. You're going to be mixing in lemonade with a beer, so what you probably don't want to do is use a really expensive beer because you're going to distort the flavor so much. So whatever mass-produced beer, I'm sure you can't tell what this one is, that you want to use is fine. And you can just eyeball it, get it about halfway full. Ideally, these would be exact same amount. I don't know if they are, don't really care. And then fill it the rest of the way up with lemonade. set your lemon wedge on the rim. There you go. Super simple. Summer shanty. All right. Our general rule this week is if you're planning on making out after the dinner, which is kind of the goal of this entire Sexapese escapade that we're doing, don't serve any food that's going to make you stink, like garlic or anything that tastes like a shoe or anything like that. All right. So our staple this week is the baking dish, lasagna dish, whatever you want to call it. But also I like to keep chilled mugs in the freezer so that you can bring them out. They're already iced up. They're great for a summer day. This is a great summer drink to have a chilled mug. So what I did is I just bought a set of 6 at someplace that rhymes with EJ Slacks and put them in the freezer, and then they're available whenever I need them. You're good. Very confused.
I don't know how to fix it, so I'm gonna.
You'll sort it out, I'm sure. So our lasagna's been in about 47 minutes, so we're going to pull it out and prepare it for the end of its cooking. Whew. Again, be really careful. It's really hot. Close the oven. You want to keep that heat in there because we're going to need to continue cooking this lasagna. So we pull the foil off. It doesn't really look that pretty. So what we're going to do is basically mesh everything together and then make sure we fill all the voids with our lasagna, and then we're going to put a new topping on top of it. So there are 2 types of spatulas. This is a soft spatula, which I really don't want to use in this instance. I want to use a hard edge spatula, which is one made out of metal. And basically, I'm just going to force this into the corners. This is still frozen.
Is that done?
Yeah, I just cooked the bread. I'm just going to put it back in we'll re-record this part. Boop, beep, beep, boop. All right. So our lasagna's been cooking for a while, 48.75 minutes. So we're going to pull it out, fix it up, and then shove it back in. Ah, it's hot. Mercy, mercy. A little bit of boiling. Always make sure you have your gloves on. Always have them on both hands. So let's get this. Again, the foil is not hot because it doesn't hold heat. What we're going to do is we want to basically take our lasagna that looks kind of crappy because we had to slice it up to get it in there. So we're basically just going to make it look pretty with our last 15 minutes of cooking. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a spatula. There's essentially 2 types of spatula. There's a soft edge. That needs to be washed now because it's touching head. And then there's a hard metal edge. I want to use the metal edge. So I'm going to get everything, basically just force it into the corners. Make sure it fills up all of the space. Doesn't matter what it looks like on top as long as everything is filled in. All right, there we go. Now it's solid all the way around. Once we finish putting this together and finish the cooking process, it'll look fine. Nobody's going to be able to see what we did to it in the middle. So I like when I'm making chili, when I'm making lasagna, when I'm making meatloaf, I like to have a little bit of spice and then a little bit of sweetness all together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little heat and a little spice to go together. You don't have to do this. All you really need to do is cover the top with cheese and it would be fine, but I'm going to add this in because this is how I like it. So what I'm going to do is just add some Tabasco sauce across the top of it, as much as I feel like, and that probably feels like enough. Then I'm going to put a layer of cheese on so that we basically hide all of the work that we did. I'm using, this is a Romano and Asiago and Parmesan, I think, which is just a good blend of cheeses. So we're going to cover the top in a relatively consistent thickness. Make sure you get it everywhere. There we go. Always, obviously, make sure your hands are clean before you do anything. And certainly don't touch this glass container. It's going to be super hot. And so now I have the spice on there, I have the cheese on there, so it looks pretty now. Once this cheese melts and it finishes cooking, it'll be a nice layer on top. But I want to add a little sweetness to offset that heat that we just added. This is pure and wild honey. It's from New Zealand. It's freaking amazing. So I'm just going to spoon out some. And again, with clean fingers, just kind of drop it on. If you have honey out of a bottle, that's fine. Doesn't really matter. That was that finger. I'm using this one to dish it out. This, once it heats up, it'll spread out over throughout the entirety of the lasagna, so you don't have to worry about getting it perfectly distributed, but you certainly want to have enough so that we offset that heat that we just added. So there we go. Oh, that's such good honey. I don't know what the bees in New Zealand do, but they make some damn fine honey. So now all we'll do, we're not going to put our aluminum foil back on because we don't need it. We want this to be exposed to the heat because we want this cheese to boil up a little bit. So let me get it back in the oven. I'm back. So let's get this back in the oven and let it heat. Last 15 minutes or so. And then it'll be done. Rolling?
Yeah.
Here's our toast for the week. Here's to the girls on the American shore. I love but one and love no more. But she's not here to drink her drink, so I forget the rest of it. So I'll drink her drink with all my heart. That's not even close to being right. Let's try that again. Here's to the girls of the American shore. I love but one, I love no more. Since she's not here to drink her part, then I'll drink her part with all my heart. Something like that. Get the lemon out of the way. Oh, that's delicious. Yeah. All right. If you want to go faster than the speed that we are going, or if you want to watch old episodes, if you want to get prepared for what you're going to need for next week's episode, you can go to sexapiece.com. It's spelled sexapiece.com. There's a link below where you can click on that. And enjoy the kitchen. We'll see you next week. You can edit out the amount of time it takes for me to do this and the sweat beads. You could do like a musical montage where you speed it up, like they did in Rocky. Because we're going to be jazzing this up a little later, cut all that out. Cooking, I don't want it to overcook or char or anything like that. 558, 6, okay. All right, that's it for that one, for that piece. I'm just gonna force this into the corners. This is still frozen.
Is that done?
Yeah, I just cooked the bread. I'm just gonna put it back in we'll re-record this part. Boop, beep, beep, boop.